Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Quadropolis. Quadropolis is a city building tile laying game for 4 players, 2 to 4 players by Days of Wonder. So because it's got Days of Wonder's name behind it, you know that most of the quality of the artwork and everything is pretty good. You can look at the videos and you'll see what the quality is. The only issue I've got with the actual components on this game is that the cards, the boards that you're playing on are super thin. That's the personal board, so they're kind of like just a thick paper. You know, that's just a little gripe I've got, but that's fine. It doesn't really affect the gameplay. It's just got to be a bit more careful with it when you're moving it around in and out of the box so you don't fold it accidentally. The game plays over 4 rounds. In each round, or should I say sections, phases, in each of those sections there's a whole bunch of tiles that are put out onto a main board that everyone shares. The beauty of the game is that you've got 4 what's called architects, and they're basically a bit of cardboard that says a number on it. That number, you put it next to a row or a column in this grid that you've set up at the beginning of each phase or section. I'm not sure what I'm calling it. Round, era, whatever you like. This grid is a 5x5 grid, and you put a numbered architect token next to one of those rows or columns, and the number on it tells you how deep into that row or column you're going to go to grab the tile. But what that number also tells you is which row and column on your own 4x4 grid you are able to put that tile on. So you need to be really thinking about where I need to place it, but what I'm going to grab as well. And so you end up having to do a heck of a lot of back thinking between turns, trying to work out exactly what you can get. Now, on top of that, there's a token that goes into the space where the last player took their tile from. When you're playing, you're not allowed to choose either the row or column that token is sitting on, which interrupts your ability to get stuff, and you're not allowed to place a architect token on top of a previously placed architect token. So the further into the section of the game that you get, the less ability you have to choose those spots. Oh, geez, it's a brain burner. It's a real brain burner. It seems, as you start the game, you think, oh yeah, it's pretty easy. But it's not. On top of that, every different type of tile has a different scoring or way that it scores. So some score points depending on what they're sitting next to. Some score points for being in a straight line, either vertical or horizontal. Some score points for stacking up. So the buildings, the houses, I guess, or the places where people live, they can stack on top of each other, and you're going to get points for stacking them on top of each other. So you could, I haven't done it, but theoretically, you could actually sit back and go, okay, this is the way to manipulate my board before the game starts to get the most possible points, and work towards getting that. But the problem is, the way we choose which tile we're going to take directly affects where we can place it. So having the outcomes where you're able to choose the right tile to go in the right place on each of the steps to get that perfect board are next to impossible. And as soon as you make a choice, that piece is there for good. You can't then move it around and put it somewhere else later. And it's really kind of binding on you and gets in the way of your ability to get the absolute maximum points out of a game possible. And then because there's 4 rounds of it, you go through this process every time where the first couple of tiles to take, or the first tile you take, it's pretty simple to take it, but it's going to keep building and getting harder and harder and tighter and tighter. So by the end of that 4th round, it's really tight as to which tile you can take, where to put it to maximize your points. Now, on top of that, there are 2 resource types, people and power. Power, if left over at the end, is worth negative because the power turns into pollution. So you need to gain enough power to enable each of the tiles to work. So by the end of the game, each tile that has one of those power tokens on it that needs a power, so the tiles tell you what you're going to get in and what it needs to make the tile work. If you've got the token on there, then you can score that tile. If you don't have the token on there, you can't score it. So you need to make sure you're creating enough power to power your whole city, but you're not creating excess power, which will cause you to have pollution. And then there's also people. So people will come in with some of the tiles, and they need places to go, places to live, places to work, places to shop. The shops will gain points for having up to 4 meeples on them. So, once again, you need to make sure you're creating enough stuff that's going to bring people into your city, but you've got enough stuff for those people to do, because any leftover people, they're kind of homeless at the end of the game, and so if they're homeless, they're negative points as well. You need to create the best city possible. That's actually pretty much the game. You might be able to even go in and play the game without watching my next video, the Gamesplanation video. I would watch it anyway, because I actually show you the parts and how it all works and how each bit manipulates off each other. But that's in essence the game. I've just given it to you in this. You're going to watch it again and go, oh, this seems really familiar. It's because I just told it to you. Other games that this is similar to, it feels really similar to Between Two Cities, except you're only manipulating your own board instead of trying to manipulate 2 city boards. So understanding the scoring at the end of the game is really fundamental to understanding the game. If you get the scoring, then the mechanism by which we get to that scoring is kind of arbitrary almost. Yes, it's tough and makes things a little bit more difficult, but you're really trying to get to those points where you can score the maximum out of every tile on the board. So say those houses, if you can get a stack of 4 of those houses, and you can get those houses next to another tile which will score off it, you're going to get double score out of that position. So making those decisions as to if I want to stack the houses or if I want to put more around this park, they're important decisions, and they affect how you go. Along the lines of 7 Wonders, the first time you play this game, you're going to be looking at it going, oh, what am I doing? Why am I doing that? And there's quite a few games like that that have this steep learning curve that when you're looking at the board, you have no concept of what you actually need to do, because there's so much to do. There's so many options. I fear that if you try to do everything, you're actually disadvantaging yourself. If you focus on 1 or 2 of the various tactics or different building types and just work really hard to get those 1 or 2 building types up, you're probably going to do okay. It's a fun little game. I haven't played it a heap, because there's been a lot of other games. This game is a year or 2 old by now, so it's kind of came into the collection, got played a few times, then went under the radar. I actually quite enjoy it. I pulled it out again and I've gone, yeah, this is actually a fun game. So look, if you get a chance, I would suggest that you do look into Quadropolis. It's not a mind-numbingly difficult game like the Vida Lasada games that I've previously been doing in the last few months. It's not super simple and tiny like the Tiny Epic games that I've been doing over the last few months. But it's almost along the lines of a... yeah, it's really close to a gateway game. I'm not going to call it as a gateway game, but it sits in that same genre as the Days of Wonder games sit. So they're not super difficult games. They're easy enough to grasp. There's not a huge rule set. It's only a couple of pages long. But there's something in there. There's something intriguing. There's something good to get your teeth into. On top of that, there's also an expert variant within the box, so that just changes out a few of the cards that will manipulate the game a little bit differently. There's an expansion that's come out in the last year, which adds a few more cards to the game and swaps things out, and once again, just gives you another few different things to think about while you're playing. So they're all worth looking into. If you're a heavy gamer, look, this might be one of those lighter games that you throw onto the table. If you're not a gamer at all, this might push you a little bit and go, this is kind of fun, and there's something a bit more thinky in this one than other games that I've got. It's all good. It just sits kind of in that ballpark where those other Days of Wonder games sit. So like 5 Tribes, I think they sit around the same kind of level of thinkiness that needs to go on. It's a different thinkiness, but the same level of thinkiness. Things that I'm not the hugest fan of in the game is keeping track of how the scoring happens. It is super point salady. I think I'll throw up the scorecard page on one of the videos for you to have a quick look at, and there's a heap of different levels of scoring. There's at least 6 different building types as a starting point. And each of them scores differently, and just keeping all of those different manipulations in your head as you're playing is really important. There is a cheat card with it. It's double-sided, so one side of the card has just icons on it, which look fairly straightforward. The other side has it put out in a different way. So whichever way your brain takes things in, that will help you out. But having to kind of look at your board, look at that board, look at that sheet, look at the board, and keep doing that math can get tough. Because it is mathy. It is having to go, okay, I'm going to get 4 points if I do this. I'm going to get, if I do that one, that manipulates this, that's going to add points here and here, so I'm going to get 5 points for doing that. That type of thing, you're going to need to really keep your head on it. The beauty of it is that the points scale. Mostly there's 4 levels of points for each of those tiles, and they scale. So if you do it once, you're probably only going to get 1 point. If you do it twice, you'll probably get 4 points or something like that. If you do it all 4 times, you're looking at about 12 points quite often. So going for just, if you're not going to do the mathiness on it, just going for, oh, I can get a 4th one in there, that's probably going to get you the most points. Okay, look, I think I've talked long enough about the Quadropolis. I'll leave it there. Have a look into it. Go on to watch my Gamesplay and Gamesplain so you can get a real feel for how the game does play and what the rules are. And I hope you enjoy the game. I hope this helps you get Quadropolis to the table. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you wish to be Gamesplained, please shoot me an email at thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.